Chapter 3. Then Autram Rufus's eels. Everything remained in place within his head, and for this reason, if he sometimes congratulated himself, he was not entirely satisfied. He had not wanted this gaiety round the leaking barrel. Men were disconcerting. He had hated the horrible laughter he had seen on their faces when he was afraid of losing his life, and he had promised and sworn to make them wear other expressions. The despair of Constant Denoir, that breaker of pledges, had not wiped out the joy he had seen dancing in the eyes of all the others. "Wife," he said to Ermeline when, as usual, he had told her the adventure with the waggoner, "such sport is worthy only of men, the sport of ugly, stupid creatures. Reynard deserves something better and knows how to prove it. But before I find my friend Eastgrim and the others again, and I'm counting on it, I want to have another go at the men." "Which man in particular?" said Ermeline. "The one who frightens me most, the horrible Autram Rufus." "My lord," said Ermeline, "listen to me and leave this bunch of dangerous, clever scoundrels alone. Like an animal, our village people say, when they mean that someone is not very intelligent. When I want to say as much or even more of some lunatic, half-wit or madman of the furry or feathered race, I say, like a man. Content yourself with those men-like creatures, Eastgrim, Bruin, Turcelin or Tibbert. Forget Autram Rufus." "But he won't forget us," said Reynard. "I know enough about men now, two-legged and smooth-skinned men, to take a leaf out of their book when I need to. I rearrange their maxims and proverbs to suit myself. They say, prevention is better than cure, and I, Reynard, say, I prefer to deal blows before receiving them. For months now I've had my eye on Autram. May the plague destroy him, Rufus, as he dares to call himself, boasting of the same surname as I, Reynard. It's true that his hair's red, but just compare it with mine, my dear Ermeline." Thereupon they caressed and licked each other, for that was how the conversations of Reynard and his mate always ended at Malpas. The year was moving towards its decline. The Advent fogs were on their way. This was weather for wolves, when sheep were snatched away, but weather too for increased vigilance by the shepherds at the edge of the forest. "Even for wolves at Advent time," said the proverb, "there can often be many a slip between cup and lip." During that winter Eastgrim was to notice it. It was also the season of the year when there was fishing in the river coves, the pools and lakes. Carp, tench, pike and eels were a blessing to men who were fasting. Especially eels, according to the Carmelite monks of Tyrone. They kept some in a fish pond at the abbey and replenished it in the autumn with the help of Autram Rufus. For the rest of the time he was one of the wildest and bravest of poachers, or journeyman for Denoir the rich, but at that season he became an honest merchant and fishmonger. With Stinker Pie's help it was quick work to remove the sluice gate from the pools and, floundering in the plopping mud, where the scaly creatures were wriggling about in the last trickle of brackish water, to seize them all, fill up the wicker baskets, load them on a waggon and, whipping the old horse with the swollen pasterns and the pouches behind his eyes, to go and sell them from door to door, from village to village, even through the streets of Orleans. But for Autram Rufus, the great proud day that filled his pockets was the Tyrone day. The big, blasphemous ruffian could feel his mouth watering in advance. A few pike for the good monks, a few female carp with golden skins, but also perch with firm flesh, fat green tench with ruby red eyes for fish stews and baking in the oven, and especially, oh, especially the eels. Autram chose the best of them, not those with mud-coloured backs and ugly yellow bellies, but the fine dark grey ones, tinged with blue, their bellies the colour of milk. He slid them into the baskets on a bed of damp waterweeds, beneath a covering of reeds, firm, alive, smooth and slippery, without grazing a single one of them. In this way the journey would do them no harm. Autram busied himself so much with this trip to the monastery that Reynard heard about it. He was therefore ready, on the lookout, when the waggon and the two men appeared at the end of the road that led to the abbey. It was a long, wide drive, flanked by a double row of elm trees, and it was quiet, full of velvety ruts and overgrown with soft grass. Reynard went to lie down, or rather to flatten himself against the side of the widest rut, lying on his back, his paws wide apart, his backbone limp, his mouth open, his tongue drawn back to the edge of his teeth. No dead fox ever looked more dead than this one. The cart came closer, swaying from one wheel to another with a subdued jolting. "What's that, Stinker?" said Rufus. "It's a badger." "It's a fox. It's even—" Outram let go of the horse's bridle and ran 4 paces forward. "It's even the fox with the black tail. Rest in peace, Reynard. I'd like to have got rid of you with my own hand." "Whoa!" cried Stinker to the horse. With their hands behind their backs, they stood there looking down at the animal at their feet. "Is he dead?" said Stinker. "As dead as the owl nailed on my barn door. A fine fox indeed. A white throat with the winter coat already grown. It's going to be cold, Stinker, but he won't worry about that any more." "Shall we take him away? Shall we skin him tonight? What do you think his skin's worth?" 60 crowns at least. Let's take him with us." Reynard hung down from the fishmonger's hands, his ribs tense, holding his breath, for he could see the men's breath hanging in the cold damp air like a white mist. "Ready? Up he goes." Reynard flew up, fell down again, more limp and loose than ever. "Yap!" and the cart went on its way again. There was at least 1/4 of a league to go before they reached the abbey, almost the entire drive, but Reynard lost no time whatsoever. The cart was carrying 2 big creels, one containing pike and carp, the other only eels. The fox slipped between the 2 and gently lifted the lid. Outram and Stinker were walking faster than the old horse and gaining upon him more and more, simply shouting from time to time, without ever turning round, "Gyap! Gyap!" Reynard pushed the tip of his nose beneath the lid. What a smell! Strong yet fresh, suffocating yet healthy at the same time. All the eels were coiled round and piled together, tied in wriggling knots and spheres, interlaced in a serpentine fashion, forming one slippery, sticky mass, one single 100-knotted eeliness that no reeling girl could ever have unravelled. "Are you comfortable in there?" said Reynard. "Are you glad to go to Tiryn, into the fish pond from which the monks will take you out, one by one, and chop you up into pieces and put you in the oven? Where's the queen among you?" "Here I am," said one of the eels, who was longer, more muscular, bluer and whiter than the others. "Come round my neck, quickly," said Reynard, "like a well-fastened collar with your tail free. Are your teeth as strong as they are delicate? Do you know how to travel through the grass when it's damp with mist or dew? Would you be glad to be back again, this very night, in the soft mud and the reeds of the pond?" "I understand," said the eel queen. "One by one, all biting our tails. Forward now, and no one must let go." She had already wound herself round the fox's neck. "Jump," she said, "and many thanks, Reynard." The fox linked his front paws together and leapt into the grass as softly as he could. "Are you following?" said the eel queen. They were following, gliding into place one after the other, their tails between their teeth, right up to the last one. What a long, interminable eel! Reynard went to the most grassy rut, away from the pathway, at the edge of the drive, and the long line of eels, gliding along beneath the green, slipped its living thread into it, down to the tail of the last eel. "Hey, Outram!" shouted Reynard at the top of his voice. "Hey there! What do you want for your basket of eels? As much as for the fox's pelt?"